I'm sure you will recall that at previous estimates we discussed the Violence Against Women campaign and the underlying materials at respect.gov.au. And I questioned the absence of citations for the statement that gender inequality is the heart of the issue. And before I move back onto that, I'd like to ask about other government websites dealing with violence against women. The government has a website called The Line, which lists 3 real causes of violence against women, real causes in quotes: gender inequality, rigid adherence to gender roles, and attitudes, norms, behaviours and practices that support violence. Now, just as a sort of preliminary question, do you accept that the Line website has no citation for its claim about gender inequality?
Senator, this is, as you would recall, ground we traversed last time, and I'm very happy to summarise what in general is our position about where gender inequality sits, both respect to the Line and the Stop It at the Start campaign. Ms Bell will be able to tell you in a moment about specific citations on the website itself, but in terms of the question that you're asking, extensive international and national research does back up the assertion that expressions of gender inequality are consistently associated with higher levels of violence against women, and those expressions are things like condoning of violence against women, rigid gender roles and identities, male peer relationships that emphasise aggression and disrespect towards women. And we have a number of citations, which I think we provided you on notice as well: European Union 2010, UN Women in 2012. We accept, though, that, as we've said in this place before, that family and domestic violence is a very complex phenomenon. It occurs in a number of ways. It's not simply related to one issue, but that certainly all of the best evidence we have behind the campaign and behind the Line as well suggests that gender inequality is a very significant factor underlying violence against women.
Well, I mean, it's not just the websites that you refer to, the source material that you publish, the information that you make available to the public on this issue doesn't just say gender inequality is one of a complex range of issues. It says it is at the heart of the issue. There, on the Respect website, it says there is a clear link between violence towards women and attitudes of disrespect and gender inequality. Now, the disrespect one, I'm not debating here today with you. I'm asking about the gender inequality one, and I have sought corroboration for that statement, and it's repeated constantly through this material. And so far, it's nothing other than one reference citing another reference which makes an assertion. So that's where I'm at the moment. Now, on the website The Line, which I cited to you, there's no citation for the claim about gender inequality. And the readers of the Line website are encouraged to get more facts and figures at the website of Our Watch, which is funded by the Commonwealth Government. And the Our Watch website states that violence against women is primarily driven by gender inequality. And that website has no citation for its claim about gender inequality. Now, the Our Watch website says that gender inequality includes the pay gap between men and women, which raises the question, are you arguing that the pay gap is a cause of domestic violence?
Senator, Our Watch is funded between the
Commonwealth
Government
states.
and the states and other sources of revenue that it raises. We, like all organisations that we fund, we value its contribution to the work that it does in this area, but we don't actually dictate, design, prescribe what its broader public messaging is.
I agree with what they're saying.
So
I certainly
there's
do.
a particular work that we do with Our Watch. We have enormous respect and to the individuals on Our Watch that contribute and champion women's safety, but it is not our department's role to go through what's on its website and see citation arrangements or referencing in that sense, with all due respect?
Well, in your respect.gov.au website, which is a government one, fully funded by the government, and we're talking here about a $30 million campaign, of which $15 million is funded by the Commonwealth Government, or over 15, because there was 1.7 million at the beginning in addition to the 15. So we're talking about a very substantial amount of taxpayers' funding to this campaign. The respect.gov.au website, I've got a printout of it right here, says that the campaign was informed by the TNS market research. And the TNS market research, I have a copy of it here. And yet it says that gender inequality is at the heart of domestic violence and lack of respect. And as I said, I'm not debating the lack of respect aspect. So the question then becomes is whether that's well-founded. Now, if the campaign is informed by TNS, then I would have thought I might have found corroboration for that statement in the TNS report. But I didn't.
Senator, the TNS report reflects a range of pieces of research that have been underway since the beginning of the National Plan in 2010, and that followed the referral of the then Prime Minister to COAG in 2015. So we have a number of studies, and Ms Bell can certainly talk you through them, that do support the assertion that gender inequality is a foundational contributor to violence against women. Dr Michael Flood, who you cited last time we had this discussion, has said that existing theories on how underlying gender inequalities and power imbalances between men and women are the foundational causes of violence against women. We've also cited, just a moment ago, I mentioned studies from the European Union and from UN Women that find that those expressions of gender inequality that I ran through are most consistently associated with higher levels of violence against women in the societies where they take expression. So, we do stand behind those sources.
So you stand behind them, I agree, but I can't find anything other than assertions. And what you don't stand behind is the WHO report, which you also cite, but you don't seem to place very much weight on it. And it lists individual factors: low income, low education, sexual abuse, parental violence, antisocial personality, harmful use of alcohol, drugs, acceptance of violence, relationship factors, community factors, a range of factors,
Yes.
not including gender inequality as contributors to domestic violence. So the question is, are you inappropriately assigning this problem, which is legitimately a matter of some concern, to something which isn't the cause of the concern?
So no, Senator, we don't believe we are. We believe that the vast weight of evidence says that gender inequality is a significant contributing factor, a foundational factor, but neither do we deny the factors that you have run through. In fact, the Commonwealth Government puts quite a lot of energy and funding into addressing those factors. We absolutely recognise the role that alcohol and drug use plays in contributing to situations of violence against women. We have several initiatives that are addressing that. We recognise the role of financial hardship. We have our financial wellbeing and capability program. We recognise the role played by experiences of childhood abuse, and Ms Bennett's just run through the very many actions and resources that the Commonwealth Government is putting into that. So we don't see it as an either-or. We do think that those other factors are important. However, we also stand by the research on which the National Plan is based, on which the Stop It at the Start campaign is based, that does assert that gender inequality has a foundational role in contributing to violence against women. And I've run through some of those citations. I know that Ms Bell has more here, specifically in relation to the Stop It at the Start campaign, and we're very happy to run through them and the sorts of issues they canvass and evidence they draw upon, if that's something that would help.
Well, if Ms Bell does have more, I did ask for those at the last estimates, and I haven't received any further. You said there was more, so perhaps you could act on that undertaking at the last estimates.
Yes, Tracy Bell, Branch Manager, Communication Services Branch. The desktop analysis that formed the basis of the campaign and the basis from what the TNS research leveraged from is based on approximately 80 sources, which I can provide to you probably tonight, actually. Of those 80 sources, which informed the original campaign approach, gender inequality was at the heart of the issue and is evidenced in a number of them, some of which we've already stated. Research from the World Health Organisation reports, of which we canvassed approximately 4 or 5 of those over a period of time. Violence against women is both a consequence and a cause of gender inequality. We also looked at the United Nations reports, which talked on structural imbalances of power and inequality between men and women, of both the context and causes of violence against women. As Dr Baxter stated, research from Michael Flood, Associate Professor, Queensland University of Technology. We used a number of his sources. We also used a National Community Attitude Survey from Vic Health. We also used a primary prevention framework developed by ANROS and Vic Health, and obviously many more as part of that 80 sources. So we can provide that list for you.
Yes, I'd like that, thank you. And I do note that on the 1st of June, Ms Bennett actually gave a similar undertaking, any other source of evidence, and I'm yet to receive that. But yes,
I think we did provide you with some out of session, but happy to take
only
them
the
on
specific
notice
ones
again.
I requested. Now, what I want to do is return to this TNS report, which says on the respect.gov.au website, informed the campaign. Now, in that report, which is actually quite a good report, it doesn't make the claim that sexual inequality is responsible or a major contributor to or at the heart of domestic violence. But what it does provide is some interesting data about the fact that domestic violence occurs more commonly in certain groups. Indigenous men are 3 times more likely than non-Indigenous men to experience physical violence. 1/3 of Indigenous women who experience physical violence from a partner, twice the level recorded among non-Indigenous women. Indigenous women in remote and regional areas experience family violence up to 45 times higher, and sexual assault 16 to 25 times higher than other women. And amongst certain cultural and linguistically diverse Australians, it's widely hypothesised that prevalence is much higher. What has the campaign done in respect of those groups?
Senator, I'm very happy to hand over to Ms Bell in a moment to talk you through the specific approaches to culturally and linguistically diverse groups and Indigenous groups, and we do have a very good story to tell there. But I would say that our response on those issues is not limited to the campaign. We have a wide range of programs and frameworks that seek to address family and domestic violence in Indigenous communities and also in cold communities, recognising their particular characteristics, as well as those really startling statistics that you've just walked us through, which we're very conscious of. So very happy to talk to you both about the broader range of programs that we undertake, as well as the specific response of the campaign.
So the tracking research for the campaign actually showed that the mainstream products worked equally well for Indigenous and cold audiences when compared to the mainstream audiences. However, because of those statistics that you just reflected, Senator, we made sure that we boosted reach to these particular audiences with a range of other tactics. So for Indigenous audiences, we tailored versions of the key influence products, so the conversation guide, the excuse interpreter, and the respect checklist. We did it at Storybook, a poster, postcards and case studies, which have all proved very popular, and we've actually done evaluation on, and they've been very successful in Indigenous communities. The distribution of the resources and the social media posts went to Aboriginal medical centres, land councils, Indigenous organisations across Australia, with a number of services asking to display the products in their waiting rooms, share with other locations, and use in respectful relationships workshops that were being carried out in the communities. We also had a number of community outreach through events such as the Indigenous NRL All-Stars game in Newcastle on the 9th of February 2017 and the Aboriginal Wellbeing Conference in Ballina. We did vox pops and we did blog posts by media voices and influencers on the excuses they've said or heard and distributed on social media and through other networks using particular Indigenous celebrities and influencers. Ongoing engagement with Indigenous media outlets, including features, editorial articles, radio interviews with media voices. We used the musician and speaker Jeremy Donovan and author and domestic violence advocate Lani Brennan. For the cold audiences, we also, even though once again the tracking research showed that the mainstream products were very successful, we...
Can I interrupt there? How do you measure success?
So we benchmark before we conduct a campaign so that we see what the level of understanding is, what the attitudes are. We then do the tracking research once the campaign has been implemented in its first burst. And the tracking research...
Do you measure attitudes or violence or awareness?
This is a primary prevention campaign. So what we're doing is measuring awareness and attitudes and how people acted on those. So I can go to the results of the evaluation in a minute if you like, Senator. But just to finish on the cold audiences, tailored versions of the key influencer product, the conversation guide, we did a brochure, poster, we did infographics and animations. We distributed in-language kits and social media posts to over 75 cold organisations nationally. We have ongoing engagement of cold media outlets, including a successful SBS event which we held in Sydney on the 15th of March.
Ms Bell, hang on a minute. The chair is going to wind me up in a minute,
Yep.
and
Yes, he is.
and I don't want that to occur without asking a couple of follow-up questions. So the issue here is that $30 million has been spent on this campaign, and this is its final year, I think, isn't it?
It finishes the middle of next year.
Yes, so $30 million. So the question really is, has domestic violence fallen?
Senator, this is a primary prevention campaign, and if we think about the alcohol campaigns and the smoking campaigns, they occur over a long period of time. So this is the beginning of this campaign. Most behavioural change and attitudinal change campaigns are 10 years. So we expect to see further down the track, 5-10 years, changes to, because of the current success of this campaign from our tracking research, we expect to see changes in the number of incidences of domestic violence because we're having a primary prevention approach.
All right.
So we're stopping the cycle of violence.
This has to be the last question, Senator Leyonhjelm.
Yeah, sorry. So just a comment, on the plan for women's safety.dss.gov.au, there is a different construction put on domestic violence, and it says unequal distribution of power and resources between men and women, and adherence to rigidly defined gender roles and identity is they are the significant drivers of violence against women. I have to say that the literature that you provided, the literature I found for myself, would support that. It doesn't doesn't support your assertions on gender inequality. I find it difficult to believe that Lisa Wilkinson's salary being less than Carl Stefanovic's, which is a gender inequality issue, or a shortage of female CEOs in public companies, or females on boards, or even women doing more unpaid domestic work than men, which are often cited as indications of female inequality, have anything to do with domestic violence. And I don't see how $30 million worth of... I don't see how $30 million of taxpayers' money spent on that is a good use of funds.
Senator, is there a question?
No, I think the chair's giving me the wind-up.